that guy's getting hired like tomorrow. Like he's going to get paid. Like, but no one does that. And I talk about this all the time. But no one's willing to do the actions as investments. People are too limited in the vectors of return. They think, I'm going to give you 2 hours of my time. I want coins in return for that. What they don't think about is actually some of the biggest return vectors you get are investing goodwill with people. The ROI on goodwill investment is far in excess of anything you could charge on an hourly rate. I would leverage the hell out of that. And because most people can't see that, or they're aware of it but don't follow up on it, that's why that's such a big opportunity.
Welcome to AI Catch Up, the podcast catching up with the tech products that matter in the AI era.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the AI Catch Up podcast. My name is Elena, and I'm your host. Today we are having a very special guest from whom we should definitely learn at least 2 things. The first one would be on how to make AI automations work for your business and for your personal life. And the second thing would be on how to make the very, very thriving community and attention online community. So not the dead Discord server that no one is using, but the one where each and every person is coming in every day. Jack, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Incredible to be here.
So I would actually start with the aspect of community building, because this seems to be the new trend, especially in the world of bots and how everything is going and running. And you have definitely mastered the community building with AI automations, with almost 2,000 people who are extremely active and who are paying you also for the community membership. Would you like to share a bit on that and how you have started with the community?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. I would always neglect to say master because I feel you never really solve it, but we've learned a lot in what we've done. So our churn rate is around 7.5%, which is really low, which we're really proud of. And the thing I'd say about community, it's not really one big solve. It's 1,000 micro things that make communities great. And the reason why communities are so big right now is, and I saw this interesting conversation with a guy called Callaway, and the idea is that social media is actually becoming media, and social media 3.0 is community. So when YouTube started, it was all subscriber led, right? We'd always get the content I subscribe to your channel, your podcast, I get your content. And it doesn't work that way anymore. Platforms push content that keeps viewers engaged. So we're losing the social part in favor of the media part. So communities in general are the future of how we'll interact, to actually get to see and speak with and engage with the people that we follow. And we're losing these third spaces in our lives, work, home. We need places to interact and engage with people. The community is definitely the future, and communities like the one that we're building are great because 8 people will have an idea. You lead the conversation with 8 ideas, and you can really mitigate your blind spots and grow a lot quicker.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. And that is also probably why so many people are right now coming back to Reddit. Because Reddit feels real. Reddit feels like the community is discussing things, and it's not just about either selling something or willing to create certain lead generation channel. Reddit does thrive, and so does school, where the community of yours is living. I would be curious on another aspect. So how has it been for you to think about the community on the first stages? Have you from the very beginning knew that it would be about AI automations? Did you know what were the needs of the potential members? How did you approach this?
So I'm a big believer that my natural inclination is to plan things out on a big whiteboard and go and execute, but no plan survives contact with a customer. So when I actually launched the community, I basically did a video. I said, hey, dude, I've just launched this thing. Click the link down below. Come check it out. It's really cool. And I woke up and 2 people joined it. I was like, oh my goodness, 2 people joined it. This is crazy. And then it just built from there. And effectively, you're just listening to what they want and what they're doing, and you constantly grow it over time. One big thing you see, though, is that you kind of lay down a blueprint and a roadmap of what works. And when you do that, when you solve that, people are like, okay, I just copy what's already been done. And that always happens when a brand new industry is created. But what you can never lose is your gut, your inclination, your just what you want it to be. I always say this. I say communities are a marriage or a kind of hybrid of the thing you talk about and who you are. And your community should be somewhere in the middle of those 2 things, which means that if I and 10 other people did a community, they should all be different, even if we're talking about the exact same thing, because the DNA of the creator is woven into it. And very early on, I don't really see it as my community. It's more of an our community thing, because when you start it off, there's 4 people in the group and you're 3 of those people and you're in every comment, you're in every thread. But at some point, it kind of creates a life of its own and it's a snowball going down a hill and you're kind of more just focused on culture and value. Like those are really the 2 things that you think about is like, how does it feel to be here? And like, how do we make sure that people get the things they need to get to accelerate their goals, to get their customers, to grow their business, to learn these awesome automations?
I see what you mean. And I have seen interesting things inside the community. So even the aspect of leveling and then getting a special avatar generated for you, it does give you a special touch and it does make you connected with the, as you mentioned, family that you're marrying. That is indeed very cool. What you have thought about.
Yeah.
What though is rather controversial is that the community is on AI automations. So generally, you would not expect such a person willing to go into the community motion from the perspective that, well, this person wants to probably reduce the number of repeated actions and repeated interactions with others. So my question would be on what exactly has motivated you to start the community in this space in terms of have you realized that, well, to make the automation work, it is something to discuss, and that is why the community is necessary? Have you thought that that is something that can be scaled, and with your own action of, well, sharing certain blueprint and then making it being reused, that is something that can also be applicable to many people? What would you say was that compelling moment?
To be honest, initially when I started it, I was like, I think this stuff is really freaking cool. And if you think it's cool, let's go chat about it together. I wanted a place where we could just go hang out and talk about it. And the way that I always describe it is like, you're part of the community. You basically hire me full time because I do this every day of the week. Like I'm basically, all I do every day is like, how can I make it as valuable as possible for you? That's basically what I do. And the idea of the community was, the stuff I build, I just want a place I can put it and let's talk about it and let's just hang out and have a good time and fun. And that's pretty much like my two biggest value drivers are basically adding value and having fun. Like that's it. It should be simple, it should be valuable, and it should be fun. It needs to be those 3 things for me. Like it has to be those things. And it's like, emails are cool and stuff, but it's a bit different when you can see faces and have conversations about it and people build on the stuff that you create. Like I could easily spend 4 weeks on an automation, but I'll get it to a point that's cool. And then people come and they build on, they take the Lego bricks and they Frankenstein into lots of different stuff, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Like fun and value. What else could have one asked for?
What else do you need, right?
Well, I guess something like let's say the vector. And in your case, this vector is the deep belief that automations are necessary. Mm-hmm. And that is something that will indeed thrive. I don't know, what is your prediction, but at least will be necessary for some years. So if we would dive deeper into that, and if we would think about the person who is rather technical, understands partially how various versions of GPTs actually operate on a bit of background level, what would you think should motivate this person to also review the topic of automations? And well, probably not program everything.
Well, ultimately, what I do, right, if you look at AI, like it's just a technology. You have at the bottom, you've got like the chips, right? And then you've got the language models that sit on top of that, like ChatGPT, Claude, that sort of stuff. And then you've got your agentic AI layer. And then you've got where we sit, which is the application, or what I call the so what level, which basically is great. We've got these cool technologies, but how does this actually improve my life? How does this improve my business? How does it make my life easier? And all AI automations is the intersection of what is the greatest, latest cool AI tech? Could be image gen, could be text gen, could be anything. And what is the greatest, latest automation technology like N8N will make? And then how do we combine those 2 things to save us time, make us more money, automate things that should be done, and leveraging that best technology to drive value to the business? That's effectively why it's so cool. If you're a beginner, start learning a bit of AI, but ultimately I think automation's in service of driving value. So I'd say that it's really important for a lot of people to learn that. Yeah.
Automations and service drives the value. Okay. I was also very curious seeing great videos of yours on YouTube on various topics, on how to make your WhatsApp messaging work for your business, how to create images that will be auto-generated.
Yes.
And so on and so forth. I was always curious whether you have at a certain point been so much into one of these directions that you have saw that, well, I want to create a product out of it and I want to scale it as the product on my own. And that is the blueprint that I will be giving away in the community.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have to keep pulling myself back from not turning these into businesses because they do. I mean, one I did on the competitive intelligence automation, I was like, dude, this gets like any business's website, their reviews, social media, and just presents the data. You can sell this for like $300 a month. Go and do it. And someone did. They're like, cool, I'll do that. And they did 90 businesses at $300 a month. And I build it. We'll just give it away. It's like my focus thing. My focus is on finding the technology and explaining it, not turning it into a business. And I've done it before. My last tech startup, I made an exit on that, scaled back to like $50K a month from basically an idea, which is really cool. So I've done that and I enjoy that. And I know there's a lot of leverage, but it's a focus thing, right? Like where your focus goes, your energy flows. So yeah, I mean, like I do sometimes have to pull myself back from doing it, but like my mission is kind of the education and helping people crush it themselves. I will flirt with an AI SaaS at some point soon, I think, but at the moment, that's my core focus.
Do you think there was also the part where you have felt that with any product that you will be building, there is such a crowded market that with the majority of tools, that's very difficult to have the leverage. If I'm thinking about someone, like building the tool that is styling the profile photos, or if I'm thinking about the tool that is doing email classification, or calendar management, or meeting supporters that will, for example, pop you with certain suggestions based on the transcript that is over there. There are so many tools, right? What is your vision on that? What brings moat?
Okay, good question. I want to start by setting context. Okay, it isn't as saturated as you think. We believe that more people are looking at this because of our bubble, right, in our community. Because, for example, if something's 3 weeks old, it may as well be ancient news in our world, right? Because that's how quick the stuff goes. But if you actually speak to people, most people can't spell ChatGPT. I mean, I spoke to my dentist recently and she's like, Jack, have you ever heard of this thing called ChatGPT? I said, I've never heard of it. What is it about? And she was explaining it to me. She said, oh, God, I've got these reports. And I know so many professional people. Like my sister's a good example of this. She's doing a charge job. She's doing well in the business and she doesn't use it. And I'm like, and it's like, honestly, a lot of the people I speak to in the community, they go to like local business events and the general knowledge level is so much lower than you could possibly imagine. So I say this just like the context of, if you're in the AI space, it's easy to think, oh my gosh, everybody's doing it. You are extremely early, very, very, very early. And we look at this technology adoption curve, right? Your early adopters, early majority, late majority, and innovators, right, at the very far left. Even as you progress down that kind of graph, you're always pushed back because new technologies come available. And what worked a year ago is not what works today. So I say this to say that not only are we not undercapitalized on the value, also what is innovation is changing constantly because it's growing. So that's the context. Then we look at saturation, okay? It's not saturated because if you think like you have 100 people, and I say this, like I did a video and I was like, guys, this is exactly how I built a business that I sold, like step by step. I did this, I did this, I did this. And I said, do you want to know one of the most interesting truths is that most people do not bother. They don't. I said, I can tell you for a fact that less than 10% of everyone watching, or like 7%, are going to make it to the end of this video. And yet everybody who clicked on the video wants to learn it, right? But the reality is that 93% of you won't make it to the end. And I want you to win, right? But that's just the reality of how people work, that they don't do it. So when you think I've got a competition of 100 people, in reality, 60% never get started ever because, I don't know, they always think it's too saturated. A great example of this was in a book called The 4-Hour Workweek, where I think they were at Harvard University or something, and they set a competition for like basically 300 of some of the brightest minds. And they said, look, you have two objectives. I want you to go and find the most famous, interesting person on the planet, and I want you to ask them a couple of questions. And whoever has the most interesting person and most interesting questions wins this thing. And basically, I've got some good electrolyte water, but it's delicious. And basically, the idea was that like you'd win this round the world trip, right? They come back 3 weeks later. They had, I think it was 3 submissions. Like a 1% of people actually did it. And I said, why the hell didn't anyone do it? And they all basically said, we didn't do it because we thought everybody else was going to do it. So we kind of didn't really think we'd really stand a chance. And so that actually stops most people from getting started. Most people never get started because they think everyone else is going to do it. They think that it's just not going to work. That's like majority number one. Then you have other people that do it. They'll try it a couple of times. They'll get distracted and do something else. Then you'll lose another 10% from things like shiny object syndrome. And so when you actually get down to the people that do it, like podcasts, for example, this was a detailed answer, but I think it's really important. Like only 1% of podcasts make it past episode 20. Only 1%. That's it, because it's difficult to be consistent, right? If you just keep doing it, you'll win eventually. And I know I've seen this so many times, right? Most people don't bother. So actually your competition is really, really small. And then on top of that, most people just don't do the basics. So if you show up, you're consistent, competition isn't as great as you think. The core thing, if I had to distill it down to one core concept, it's like I've always found that my biggest step changes in growth in my life, in my businesses, has always been when I habitualize learning. When I say, look, every time I do the thing, I'm learning one new thing. Like Gymshark, right? First 11 businesses completely failed. Then he built a unicorn. Like it's Hormuz is exactly the same. You're not going to get it right first time. Just acknowledge that you've got a knowledge deficit and you're never, ever going to know everything. You have to habitualize learning new things every time that you do something. And if you can do that and you can be okay with failing and be resilient, it is an if not a when thing. But there's a reason why not everybody does it. And it's because it's difficult and it takes time. It's simple, but not easy. You just have to stick with it and grow. So the competition isn't as saturated as you think. And there's lots of things we could talk about in terms of like getting your customer resonance, proving that people want the things that you're making, a lot of small details. But fundamentally, that psychological stuff is really important, because if you don't understand the psychological stuff, I could give you the perfect blueprint. You could drop Waze's business plan on Google's desk and nothing would happen. Ideas are cheap. They're not really worth anything. Everything is the execution.
Definitely. And you have also brought me to recalling my experience a year ago in Stanford. So I was walking around and I wanted to grab a sandwich or something. And that is why I came to the area where the students were sitting and learning. And can you imagine that almost no one of them has had ChatGPT open?
Wow.
In Stanford.
That's insane.
And that was the moment where I was like, but that is the best thing that you can do to actually prepare yourself for the exams, right? And it is not because they were having something like, their own tutoring assistants running. No, it was Word and people were typing things, or I don't know what else, but probably highlighting something in PowerPoint. So I should definitely agree with you that it just feels like a bubble, and it feels that everyone is very much ahead of you. But you are very right that incremental steps do bring you forward. And here comes the question on what is your recommendation for the ones that are starting in terms of what direction to look into. And if you are committing to learning something, what do you rely on when choosing this?
Well, I really love the concept of the 1% skill sets, which basically says, hey, if I line you up with 1,000 other people, random people on the planet, what would you be in the top 10 for? What would you be in the top 1% of people on the planet for? I call this your playing hand, okay? You went to Stanford, you studied biology, you were great at YouTube, you're excellent at making podcasts, you can design. You start stacking these things together. 3 1% skill sets is like a 1 in a million combination, okay? Because they're not additive, they're compounding. So the idea is, let's first of all get you your unfair advantage, which is to say, if I stack all my unfair skills, my 1% skills, what does that make me uniquely positioned to do? For instance, if you're selling AI and you've got a lot of experience in real estate and you get XYZ, you understand the problem better. You're going to be at a greater advantage than somebody else. So I like to think about that, number one. Number two is the biggest drive it should be, who am I helping? What is the problem that I'm solving? And how am I actually solving it? And actually, the problem that I'm solving, okay, there's lots of great businesses or models or podcasts or YouTube channels that talk about solving problems. But if that problem doesn't have a big enough pain point, or it isn't valuable enough that you're going to create enough value you can capture something, it's not worth doing. Like there's a TV show in the UK called Dragon's Den where people create products and pitch it. And I remember when I was in high school, I watched a guy pitch a product that was, you go to a restaurant and you sat down on a table and like the table's wobbling a little bit. He had this thing that would you could pull it out and put it under the table and it would like stabilize it. Or like, a banana thing that goes on top of your banana to keep it. Like, is that a problem? Yes, but it's somewhere near the bottom of a list of things we care about. And it's not a big enough problem, right? So it's got to be a problem someone cares about. Like, who is the avatar? What's the problem they've got? So you may say, hey, my avatar is business owners. want to make more money or want to know how to scale properly or get more clients or get more customers, that's a big pain point and a pain point that people would pay money to solve. So it isn't just, am I adding value? Am I adding enough value that I could actually monetize it? We call that added value and then captured value. So that's the way that I think about it. The second part that I would throw on top of that is, how do you learn? You just habitualize it. There's an expression that says there are like learning years and earning years, and you are earning. You're just not earning in pounds and pence today. It just takes time for that to sort of materialize into reality, you know?
Yeah. I really loved all the things that you have mentioned. So if I would summarize, the first one was on top 3 things where you can be in top 1%, which does add up to something beautiful.
That you hit the nail on the head there. It's your 1% skill sets. Like, what is it unique about you that like helps you crush it? And then picking a problem, who are you helping, and what is the problem you're solving? And also, I just add on that, like I'm sure, I don't know if you've experienced this, but it's also pivoting. Like, you're never going to get it correct perfect. You're always going to have to make slight degree pivots left and right. And that's completely okay. Take Meta, for example. Facebook turned into Meta. So that's one of the largest companies on the planet. You never escape the need to pivot. It's always going to follow you around.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And was the last point that you have mentioned. So on the learning years and earning years, you are among those YouTubers that are very open on what is earned and how it can be earned. What is your relationship with earnings? How do you think about money in terms of whether it is time to pivot if the income is not coming, or are you seeing that, well, I do have a good time, I like it, that's why at a certain point the profit will come in?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think the way my philosophy is, like, your first business, solve the money problem. Do something that's economically valuable, and then you can bring your own unique style, energy, and vibe into it. I mean, the golden circle is what creates money and what you actually like doing, and kind that marriage in between it, right? And something that you enjoy doing is really, really important. Yeah, that question of enjoyment versus generating capital, I mean, the key is to leverage your skills. It's my belief that everybody on the planet is the best in the world at one thing. I really genuinely believe that there's something that you are uniquely skilled at that no one else on the planet can do to your level. The question is finding out, well, what is that thing? Like, what is the thing that I can do that doesn't feel like work for me, that if because no one can beat you at being you, right? That's undefeatable. So there's something about finding out what that looks like. And a lot of making money is actually just shattering belief systems. Like, I didn't believe that it's possible. I remember when I was at university, one of the guys was in our cohort. He got a grad scheme for £30,000 a year. And this was in 2012. And I remember we were like, whoa, this is crazy. He's going to make 30K a year. I was like, this is unbelievable. And obviously it's that's like average salary in the UK. And obviously as a grad, you want to hit that, right? But as soon as he hit it, it was like, 30K is now the standard. Like, where that just set the standard of, we have to make 30K in our first job. And pretty much more or less that's what everyone did, because that set the standard. So a lot of it is like seeing people around you doing it that really sets the standard that you can actually do it too. And that's really, really important. But if you're just following these systems and stuff and learning, then yeah, you keep on progressing, you will make money with it. I'd say, like, try not to reinvent the wheel. Copy what already works and do that.
Any example of that? So, for example, the friend of yours, anything that we might have known from the market and some brands that are in our minds?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, if you just think about like automation agencies, right? Someone said, hey, I got a customer by sending a personalized email. I spent an hour researching them, thinking about them, adding value, and then it materialized into a customer. Like, of all the things you need to innovate on, the funnel is not one of them. You don't need to think of new and creative ways to get customers. Just copy the stuff that actually already works and you'll be completely fine with it. Yeah, and it's the same across everything. I've experienced it both ways in my businesses where I've tried to create new and innovative ways to get customers. You don't need to be smart. Just copy the stuff that works and innovate on delivering the product and making that excellent.
I've touched upon a very interesting aspect of thinking about what to automate and thinking on where your potential incremental change can come from. So if I'm thinking about the smaller business agency that is having, let's say, 10 people and they are creating AI automations, would you say that they should not think about the internal efficiency up to a certain point? Would you recommend them to do that early on? Would you concentrate their effort only on how to improve the speed of what they are building?
I'd say that you have to look at your business and identify your constraining factor. So in other words, like, hey, what is the thing that, like, if this, what we could, for example, a good analogy is a car factory, right? I can produce 100 doors a day. I can produce 500 bonnets. I can produce 600 steering wheels, but I can only produce one engine a day. It doesn't matter what capability you've got on everything else. The constraining factor is engines, because that is the maximum car output per day, because that's the limiting factor. In your business, you have to look at your business on a sheet of paper or a whiteboard or grab a coffee and think about what is the thing that is holding us back, and then ruthlessly attack and focus on that one thing, get it done, and then do something else. Throw 100% of your effort at that constraining factor and then go on. And you may say, well, our biggest constraining factor is we don't have enough customers. Or it could be we're getting the customers, we're just not converting them. Or it could be they're leaving us. Or you have to think about what it is and then systematically and ruthlessly attack that one thing until it's solved. And you'll always have a pendulum of getting more customers, delivering the product, and loads of shiny objects want your attention. It's focus. Focus is your superpower. Remember that the smaller you are, the more laser focused you need to be on solving your problems.
And what are the things that have helped you immensely on this journey? If you could maybe share certain bottlenecks that you have overcome on your own, or certain constraint, how you have referred to it.
Yeah, I mean, a great example of that is YouTube content. I was a big believer in I had silver bullet syndrome, which was that I could do like one video a week and make it really cool, and that would be fine. But what I realized is that, like, actually I should be doing way more volume, and I started doing 4 videos a week. And what's helpful with that is you get more data about the kinds of content and videos that work and resonate, and just don't be afraid to fail and get it wrong, basically. And when I did that, the constraining factor was volume, because what volume was doing, more people see it and it engages and it helps out with your value flow, but also you get more data. Like, if you have 16, 20 videos a month to look at versus 4, you can really understand, like, okay, well, these freaking 2 videos crushed it, and that added loads of value. And what you define as value is an interesting conversation. Let's do more of these 2. So your iteration cycle of growth is a lot quicker. One of the biggest things I'm learning recently is that the guys that crush it are like this with data. They are really close to data. The closer you are to data, the better you'll win. Data plus action, of course.
Yeah, content is a good example, because I think that with each and every automation, you are getting into certain data. And then the question is, how do you gather it, and how do you make sense out of it, and what do you do with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have there been big pivots in your content strategy based on that, except for, well, trying to produce more content?
Yeah, I mean, a big one is, who is my avatar and who's the person I'm trying to help? And so a year ago, I was explaining a lot about what is make.com, and this is a trigger, and this is what Airtable is. But like, the knowledge base of the audience has increased over time, and obviously lots of people have seen the value of the model and stuff. So lots of new entrants that do various different things, and they tend to make. Initially, when I started, the content that I was creating was like, I think this is really freaking cool, and I just want to share it because I think it's A's. But then it's actually, first of all, not all views are made equal, because you can have like 1,000 people who are like really, like, you know, switched on, knowledgeable business owners who are really like, obviously everybody's valuable, but it depends for what, right? Like, if you're doing a gaming channel showing like Minecraft videos, your audience is probably 13. So good for views, but you're probably not really going to parlay that into a business. So you'd rather 1,000 higher quality viewers than 1 million unqualified ones, which is why there are several channels with millions of subscribers that struggle to make a rent, because they own the eyeballs, but there's no value chain that flows from it. So that's the biggest misconception. And so for me, one of the questions was like, well, who's our target avatar and who do we really want to help? And so we tightened that up recently. And it's basically, we want to help business owners and entrepreneurs who want to, you know, scale their business, reduce their costs, or want to sell those products to different businesses. And a kind of nice other couple, I think, is just people that think AI is really cool and want to like bring that stuff in. So you can start off broad, but really it's about getting one thing. And that's something that we need to be better at, because we can be accused of being over the map a little bit. And as I've met loads of people from our community, and again, it'd be great I'm looking forward to when we meet up, I realized no 2 people working for the same thing. And everyone has like these different focuses and things. And it's like, I want to provide a place where, if you're just a business owner who wants to do something cool and grow your business, that you can come and get a lot of value. So yeah, I'd say in a short answer to your question is like, yeah, avatar is one that we're really tightening up.
Yep. For sure, something that is very challenging to have a grasp on because so many people are looking into the field. And I very clearly remember the situation when close to the Christmas holidays, I have been in the bookstore for some gifts. And then there was a man, I want to say around 70 years old, that was trying to find the book. Well, it is a German bookstore. That is why he was trying to look into German books around AI and how to make it work. And that was so adorable to see.
That's amazing.
But that is the thing. I would personally not know how can I help this person. I would have a big challenge around that because, of course, I haven't also asked whether I could support him. Maybe I should have. I'm thinking about that guy for a long time, especially when reflecting on what you have described before as for whom it can be helpful and that it can be helpful.
100%.
You have touched upon the meetups and that you are very often interacting with community members. Would you have a certain member in mind who has really rocked the journey? So the one to celebrate the effort of whom you would be, well, shouting around and saying, wow, it is incredible what this person has achieved. Is there a certain example like that in your mind?
Yes, so many. That's what I'm really blessed about. Like, it's the most amazing, heartwarming feeling ever when I go to the meetups and someone's like, Jack, I sold this thing you made for like $20,000, or I'm doing this full time now, or I sold 90 of these things for $200 a month. There's so many success stories and use cases, and it makes me really like, you can't beat that. It's so freaking cool. But even like outside of financial stuff, just people personally, like who've, they're doing a career pivot later in their life. And they're like, dude, I just built my first automation. Like, I really love celebrating those wins. And the wins are so different for everybody. So it's really freaking cool to see people in the flesh, put the hand on the shoulder, buy them a coffee, and just hear their cool stories. And there's so many to talk about. It's cool. It's really, really, really freaking cool. And I mean, like, you lose track of numbers so much. Like, with 1,600 people in the group, it's like you forget they're all humans. And that sounds crazy, but when you meet them, they're like, oh my gosh, you're real. I'm like, these are all real individual people, like super smart, super kind, like yourself, and just really cool people. And they all win in very different ways. So it's like, yeah, it's really cool.
And have you been able to get a grasp of what are these things that they are commonly building and to whom they are selling these AI automations?
Yeah, so I did a big survey actually on like what are the things people are selling, and some of the big stuff is like general or process automations. So that's stuff like onboarding. Big ones with things like chatbots, voice agents didn't particularly feature super high, but that's a big opportunity. Things like, I mean, I've got a full list of them, but like, yeah, the big one, the biggest by far is process automations, and then you also have general strategic consulting, which is like, hey, you're busy running your business. This is all I do every day. Let me help you understand and build a roadmap of where your big opportunities are and how you can drive value. So you don't need to think about that. And we get pounds and pence ROI to it. So that was also a really big one.
I expect the latter one, though, to be within the space of AI automations, just from the perspective that it is very difficult to get the foot into the door with exactly strategic consulting. So if I'm thinking about someone who will be recommending, well, you have call center, let me make it happen for you that you will be actually able to respond 24/7. That is something that is clear, right? Where you have the input, output, and it is possible to measure that, especially if you don't know the consultant or the person who is providing services for you. Well, but when it comes to strategic consulting, interesting.
Well, here's the dirty secret, right? Is that like most people don't know what they're actually doing. And if you can provide value and educate and say, dude, like, just so you know, by the way, here are 7 opportunities. I work with like 7 other people in your industry, and here are things that they're doing that drives value. Here you go. It's all operating on trust and relationships. That's what drives most of it. And you can create that just by adding value. Like I pinged a gal recently, and I said, by the way, this cool text come out. This would crush it for your niche. I'm building something. I've got to build a video on this anyway. Like, tell me the thing you want automating, and I'll just include it. And she was like, oh my gosh, that's freaking like it's like stuff like that, adding value and doing stuff. It just really crushes it. So if you can demonstrate, like, and this is the thing about it, like, usually if this is what you're like, and you're not even getting paid yet, what the hell is it going to be like when I bring you on board, right? Like, if you make your objective to add as much value as possible to the business, you're going to get high. You just are. Like, but the cool thing is most people won't bother. They just will not do it. I get so many emails saying, Jack, I'm a thumbnail designer. I want to design your thumbnails. I get a lot of those. I get no emails saying, Jack, I think your CTR is lower than it should be. I think you could really crush it. But I've just redesigned your last 3 thumbnails. This should increase your CTR. Just have it. I want to bless you. That guy's getting hired like tomorrow. Like he's going to get paid. Like, but no one does that. And I talk about this all the time. But no one's willing to do the actions as investments. Think about it like an investment. Like the way you create wealth and value is you understand where your greatest ROI sits, right? Like you invest in, say, the S&P 500 or whatever, because that's average, like, I don't know, 10, 11%. You know you're going to get a return. People are too limited in the vectors of return. They think, I'm going to give you 2 hours of my time. I want coins in return for that. What they don't think about is actually some of the biggest return vectors you get are investing goodwill with people. The ROI on goodwill investment is far in excess of anything you could charge on an hourly rate. I would leverage the hell out of that. And because most people can't see that, or they're aware of it but don't follow up on it, that's why that's such a big opportunity.
I really like how you're positioning this, and especially since I'm experiencing right now with podcasts, pretty much each and every week, some person who is contacting me and saying that, well, we will drive your podcast into the top lists of the categories. And then I'm sitting there and realizing that, well, it is something that you can already offer that to me without high cost, but then also positioning yourself as the expert within the field. Just if you're saying that you have been working with podcasters, that doesn't mean that I'm right now inclined to work with you. And then what you mean is that if you're offering a lot in advance or for the goodwill, that is also positioning you into a bit different place. That is very beautiful. Yeah.
So what I'm going to do to prove this concept, I think I've been toying with this idea, is like, I'm going to find a way in my videos where I pick an example. I'm going to pick like a random business and something that I think would rock their world. And I'm just going to send it to them after. And I just wanted to show it as an experiment. Like if I just did that for a few videos, just to demonstrate how that translates into business relationships, because I know for a fact that it does. So I think that'd be cool to do that live and automation stuff. But with that guy, like if he said, dude, like I want your podcast to blow up, use his keywords, use this, you're like, I bet he doesn't even need to ask you for anything. If you just said, oh, do it, use it. You're the one that says, I've had guys before that just give me so much value. I'm at the end of the call. I'm like, how do I pay you? Like, how does this work? What do I want? And that's how you know you're driving the value, right? Like you don't even need to mention the payment stuff, because if they see the value, they'll want more of it. People would rather have the problem solved than the 10K. Like the problem being solved is worth more. Like this is a big misconception. Everyone thinks you've got to like arm wrestle a guy for a sale. It's like, no, we'd rather not have the problem than money. Not having the problems worth way more to us. But this is why like a community and speaking to people who are in that space is so important, because it changes your perspective on this sort of stuff. And a lot of people need to be reminded more than need to be told. And this is the thing, like, you know, I don't know if you know this in your personal life, but I've certainly seen a lot of like, let's say you have someone who's on a weight loss journey. They know you just got to eat less volume and exercise. Like, it's not new information. It's just executing on the information. It's the thing.
Yeah, for sure. It is exactly what you have been describing was execution and ideas. So if you are executing a certain idea directly, that is very helpful. And when you were sharing right now that you are, well, sometimes resharing certain automations of yours too, some direct pointers that you know might be interested in that. Is there a certain automation that you're sharing way more often than other one?
That's a good question. Automations that are more closely linked to a number in a business do better. So anything to do with getting more clients or converting those clients usually are really, really popular. Or cost savings. Yeah, anything that can just take a number off the bottom line is extremely popular.
Something that I've also seen reflected on your video titles, highlighting exactly these 3 things.
Yeah, exactly.
Very much makes sense.
That's so important to do as well.
Would you also be able to walk us through the automations that currently are running for a YouTube channel of yours? So thumbnails, titles, descriptions, maybe the content itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So automate YouTube channel. So one of the big things is data. So every week I have an automation that gets all my transcripts. It gets all the comments on those videos, and it teases out and asks questions. It says, hey, here's how these videos performed. Here's what people are saying. What are the content opportunities off the back of that? So I did a video on a certain automation. Everyone's like, Jack, we need this, and this featured added to it. I'll be able to get that information from AI. So one is in data. The second one, actually, a lot of the YouTube analysis, like one of the things we're doing with YouTube thumbnails is experimenting more broadly with different thumbnail types and doing 2 iterations of that. Number 1 is concept. So like same text, 3 wildly different concepts. One could be faceless, one could be you, third one could be some wild card. And then when you get the winning type, you then do a second test, which is like a text. And then on the actual content creation side, the actual big one is the title and the intro. 80% of the work is the concept, the packaging, title, thumbnail, and intro. That's like 80% of it. So I have a checklist now that I go through. I'll share it with you if you'd love to share it with people, just to kind of cut you a couple of hours of work. Basically what it is like you go through that, and then I work with AI on refining my intro. And every week I'm looking at how my intros have performed, like where was attention held greatest at 30 seconds into the video. That's basically all of YouTube's crushing that sort of stuff. I also did a video, which is really cool, on like auto-translating your videos into any different language. So China's quite an underserved market at the moment. So that's also a really cool one I'm looking at. So just translate all my videos into like Mandarin or German or something. It'd be really cool.
I would be very curious to see how the numbers in China will perform. I have no idea how often people use YouTube there with all the VPN stuff.
Yeah, well, there's a really nice thing. I mean, I might just do it as a test, like just like create a video in a different language and just like put it out, because I think it'd do really well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would be curious to hear you speaking Chinese.
Yeah.
With something like Level Ups or something.
It's exactly. But what's funny is it keeps your accent, so it sounds exactly like you, but just in the language. Yeah. So there's one for me in German. I'll send you a German example of it so you can check it out. But it's cool. It's very weird to hear yourself speaking fluently in German. Yeah.
Would you say that it is keeping your accent, really? Would you?
It keeps your accent, yeah. Sounds exactly like you.
That is so fun. And now that we came to the point of, well, a bit of tooling. Well, you're obviously a big fan of Make.com. That is something that I shouldn't ask about. What would you add to, except for Make.com, into your top 3?
Okay, so you're right. Make.com and N10 automation platforms. Biggest tool, one of the cool tools I've been using a lot is deep research. I really like that functionality. I'm a big fan of keeping it simple, stupid. It's like, its ability to give it a deep question. I found it works best when it has actual things. So if it said, figure out the tax situation of X and here's my details, it's really good at doing that. If you ask it questions like, what does it mean to be? Okay, you're going to get like a more variety. So deep research is a key one. I absolutely freaking love that. Automation platforms, of course, I love that. And then third one, what would I say is a cool tool that anyone could really use and crack off with? Genuinely, conversational AI would be one that I'd say. So not just text, I'd actually converse and have a chat with it to really pull apart and identify where you're not thinking about things. It is exceptionally good at challenging your thought processes and make you think more clearly. So you're just having an impartial, ultra-high IQ artificial intelligence to bounce ideas off and understand your blind spots is game-changing. Yeah. So I'll say, hey, this is what's happened. These are the facts. What is it that I'm missing? And its ability genuinely, and I don't like text. There's just something different about speech and it being more conversational that just seems to get more and hearing it also, like reading versus hearing, is quite an interesting dynamic as well. But that's the piece of AI that I would miss the most if AI were to disappear tomorrow, I think. Yeah.
And what are you tending to use currently for especially conversational part? Because that has been also my experience, that it is very different if you are describing your ideas or your thoughts or your concerns while talking and not typing. So is it just the traditional ChatGPT, or are you building on top of it?
Yeah, it's ChatGPT voice. I like Sesame, but Sesame doesn't have a memory yet because that's got EQ and it'll chat. I left a conversation with that. I laughed for the first time ever talking to an AI, and I was like, that is really strange. It's strange in a good way, but I was like, wow, it's tapped into this emotional intelligence sort of sphere, which is really powerful. But like the most robust in terms of its memory at the moment and just accessibility, I've been using ChatGPT. But Sesame, when that launches and they get real-time, zero latency, personality-driven, high EQ conversations, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah. My bet would be also there, especially since I'm seeing so many productions in the space of therapy, in the space of let me explain my purpose of life, let me help to prioritize things. That is something that I hear very often right now, being present as the next new app to come in. And that is where it was also very interesting to see when OpenAI has rolled out the memory all over the conversations. Because Anthropic is obviously positioning themselves as, well, we don't store the content. We will know only things within something that has happened in one conversation. But then, well, I can't improve based on various conversations if I would be asking the same questions as you have described on where are my blind spots where I might be better. Run analysis around several conversations of ours.
You've got, yeah, and it's actually, just really interesting concept as well. Is just like you want to try to become your own internal point of origin, which basically means that the actions you take and the way that you think is driven by you, not by input. And there's this idea of like, what proportion of a day is content and ideas coming at you from other sources like social media, YouTube, reading something. Having time where it's you and like a blank sheet of paper to create what are actually your thoughts is really powerful, because that really creates self-alignment and makes you your own central point of origin. And AI is really helpful with that, because you can use AI as a tool to ask questions to help you understand what you actually think and problem solve better. So it's really, really powerful tool. And like people aren't using it genuinely. I mean, like there was a number thrown out that like using AI increases your IQ by 20 points, which I think is interesting. There's no question about it. Like like medical, like if you've seen examples of like pets being ill and they speak to ChatGPT about it and they get these like rare, super insane diagnoses and stuff that vets just miss because they're not supercomputers. It's like leveraging it's really cool and really important and drives a lot of value. And I think like the more areas you can integrate and converse with AI, the better. I'm very bullish on that technology. I think it adds a significant amount of value for sure.
I love how you're highlighting the aspect of us thinking actively. And how before, if we would not build the automation around pulling the information from one place to another, we would be doing this, right? And we would be doing it, 80% passively. And now we are able to automate that and then be more in the active mode of thinking.
Exactly. And AI adds value in two vectors, right? First one is time repeating tasks. So I'm just not doing the same things over and over again. That's AI automations. And the second dimension is reducing cognitive load. And this is the big trade-off you think about when you're automating is I can get an AI to do something, but if the cognitive load investment is just as high as me doing it myself, it's not worth doing. So it should either reduce friction on volume or friction on actual output. So that's why they say the funny thing with an automator is they will spend 4 weeks automating something to save them 10 minutes a month.
Yeah.
So some things, you got to really pick those high ROI things to do.
That's for sure. And for the last question of our conversation today, I would be very curious to point towards exactly the last thing that you have mentioned. What would be one automation that you would ask everyone from our audience today to build?
One automation for everybody to build. I'm going to give you a really, really simple one that I think is cool. And that is to segment your emails and get an auto response. So email comes in, it gets put into one of your predefined categories like invoices, spam, opportunities, job offers, whatever it is, and then creating a draft response to those emails based on your internal voice. So you can go in, see if you like it, click send, and that'll probably save you a significant amount of time. And it's not that difficult to build that one either. So that would be like one really tasty, easy one that I'd throw out there.
Not this one, Jack. Thanks a lot for your time, for your insights. And we will be keeping your YouTube channel as well as contact details of yours in the show notes. Thanks a lot for tuning in.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Great conversation.
AI catch up brings the news. Tech solutions users can't refuse.